I'm honored to be here today. I was thinking, oh, great, I'm going to be in a little room with about 12 people and be able to talk to everybody. But, okay. And I have a whole page of notes here of what I might talk about, but I think I'm just going to tell a few stories. So I was raised Episcopalian, and I had some unusual experiences growing up, and when I was about 12, I went and asked my mother, what is it that happens when everything stops, when there's no thoughts, and you don't know whether it's been 5 minutes or an hour or 2 days? She said, you can't do that. So Indiana in the 60s, right? So I learned not to ask some of those questions. But I kept trying to figure out what was happening. And one day, it was Indiana, beautiful spring day, blue sky, those huge white clouds with beams of light coming down like all the pictures in the Bible that I was used to looking at. And I started thinking about this old man sitting on a throne with a long white beard going, you shouldn't be doing this. It's like, wait a minute. Okay, so God is omnipotent and omnipresent. He's omnipresent. That means he must be omnipresent. That must mean that God is everywhere. And if God is everywhere, then God must be everything. And if one part of God turns to another part of God and says, I'm mad at you, is that God that's doing that? Or is God the whole? And so I started thinking about the totality. And, okay, so how do I understand the totality? Well, it's got to be big. So how big is big? So I kind of let my mind get bigger. And, well, okay, so what's past the bigger? Well, there's got to be more. So I let my mind get bigger than that. And I kept doing that and kept doing that. And then suddenly, everything went to one point. I went, that's strange. So I tried it again. And the same thing happened. I went, well, okay, so here's this little still point. Well, how small is that? So small, it's got to be small, right? So I started going in and in and in, and suddenly it became big. And so I'm going, okay, so what is this? So anybody, when I was in grade school, one of my classmates showed me a blank piece of paper and said, this is a picture of a cow eating grass. Anybody ever? Yeah, yes? Okay, so you're the third person in almost 40 years of my telling this story that has heard this. So where's the grass? Well, the cow ate it all. Well, where's the cow? Well, there's no grass, so the cow went away. So everyone's heard of Tai Chi, right? Tai Chi, so Tai Chi Chuan, this movement, yogic exercise, martial art that people practice. But what is Tai Chi? So Tai Chi Chuan is that system of movement. Tai Chi is the yin-yang differentiated aspect of the universe. So the Tai Chi diagram is the yin-yang diagram. But before the yin-yang diagram is Wuji. So Wuji is the undifferentiated. So the story about the cow I'm getting to. So the Chinese character for Wu is a picture of 40 men in a forest. So this is from a couple thousand years ago. So 40 men go into a forest, and pretty soon there's no forest left. So that's nothing. So the state of undifferentiation. So even back then, there was this idea of people going in and things disappearing. So when I started reading texts from all different traditions, slowly what really spoke to me, what explained a lot of the experiences that I had were the Taoist texts. In China, traditionally, there were three teachings, three great schools of thought: Confucian, Taoist, and Buddhist. So in the end of the Tang Dynasty, beginning of Song Dynasty, there was a new school of Taoism that began. That was the Trinzhen school of Taoism. And it was really, in a sense, an amalgamation of Buddhist and Taoist practices. So when Buddhism came to China, there was there was no language to translate the Sanskrit. So they actually used a lot of Taoist terminology to translate the Sanskrit terms. So there was a lot of cross-fertilization at that point. So there's many aspects in Taoism that come from Buddhism, and a lot of Taoist influence actually on Chinese Buddhism. But this is an image from a Ming Dynasty text on Taoist internal alchemy. And this text is in the National Library in Beijing, hidden away, and no one can see it. But someone had the guanxi, knew the right people and spent enough money to be able to get into it and take photographs. And I got this photograph from him. And so when you look at, can you see this diagram okay? What do you notice? How many hands? Yeah, there's 5. 5 hands. So this is called the Sanjiao Huanyi Tu. So the 3 teachings merged into one diagram. And you see there's a Confucian hat on one side, a Taoist hat on the other side, and the shaved pate of a Buddhist monk in the middle. And they're holding a scroll. And in the middle of the scroll is a red circle. And that red circle is the pearl of wisdom, the Taoist elixir that's cultivated in internal alchemy. It's the wuji. It's the undifferentiated whole. So the 5 hands are the 5 phases, the 5 elements. How many feet? 1 foot, because they're all on the same path. So I was visiting one of the major Taoist mountains in the late 80s, and it's a Taishan. And the major temple on that mountain is to Bishan Yunzhen, the goddess of the azure mists. And she has a very similar manifestation to Guanyin. So she manifests in the appropriate form to whoever she appears to. So when I got to the temple and started talking to an old Taoist, and he said, "Who are you? Why are you here? How do you speak Chinese? You study Chinese medicine? What's the name of this point? What's the name of that point? What's the production cycle of the 5 elements? What's the control cycle of the 5 elements?" So he finished. Then it was my turn to ask a question. So in southern China, there's a very well-known goddess called Yao Chi Jinmu. So I asked, are they basically the same? Are they different manifestations of the same? And he said, "Oh, no, they're different." So after I finished talking to him, and he went away, another old Taoist came up and said, "Actually, a lot of people would say that they are." So one of the most commonly seen images of Taoism or well-known figures in Taoism are the Eight Immortals. And the Eight Immortals are the subject of lots of stories, and they're seen in all kinds of artwork, Chinese artwork. But there's something very interesting about the Eight Immortals. The first of the Eight Immortals is Zhang Guo Lao, who's very, very ancient. There's Lan Caihe, who's a child. He Shengu is a woman. Li Tieguai is a foreigner. So wealthy, poor, male, female. So there's this universality of who can do the cultivation.
What happened to your faith in God, presumably, that you had growing up with your journey to Taoism? How was it changed it, obliterated?
That experience that I was talking about shifted it to a whole different place. So it was... So it's interesting that the Chinese word for faith is a person standing next to their word. It also means trust, truth, honesty, and so it became something that was different from faith. It was a knowing. It was a direct experience. And so, some years later, I was coming back from Taiwan and going to renew the tabs for my car at the license bureau, and I parked my car in the parking garage, and someone had spray painted on the side of the parking garage, "No more secondhand word of God." And I guess that's where, when I think of faith, I think of sort of two things. One is believing in something that I have no idea whether it's true or not, or taking something on faith. And the other side of that is, so question back, do you believe in the earth? I mean, it's always held me up. If I've stepped somewhere where the earth isn't, it doesn't hold me up. But it's always held me up. And so it's that direct experience that when there's a teaching, when there's a transmission, when there's something that can help connect to that direct experience, that direct knowing, then that's what I see as being truth and true faith. The other side of that is, what is it that obscures one from touching that? It's a kind of grace that allows you to be there. And what is it that gets in the way of that? It's the ego, it's the self. And so when you do something that allows you to set that aside, that gives you the ability to have that connection. And so you go into a Taoist temple, and you walk into the temple, and there's an image of the Wanlingguan, the protective deity. And he's standing on a flaming wheel and has this weapon. It's like an iron bar over his head, and has fierce eyes. And as you go in, there's all these various deities in the temple. And in the very back are the Sanqing, the three pure ones. And the three pure ones represent the Tao, the undifferentiated Balachi. So the first Yuanshi Tianzhen is the primordial origin heavenly worthy. That's just that. The second is Lingbao Tianzhen, which is the tendency for patterns to form inside of that undifferentiated. And the third is Dao De Tianzhen, which is a tendency for those patterns to take form. So as in Lao Tzu, Dao De Jing, so that is said to be a manifestation of that. So someone has something's going on in their family, and they're going to pray for the health of their parents or their child, or to have a child, and so they go into the temple, and they're not going to go back to the Sanqing. They're going to go to someone that they can relate to.
Is there a Taoist form of meditation?
Yes.
That's different than Buddhism?
Yes. And I'll speak about that in just a moment. But the person who, so you can have someone who's a great scholar who has this very lofty idea of the Sanqing. And you can have someone who has very, no education, is very simple, who can make that profound connection through very simple practice. And so actually this goes very well going right into the next question, which is talking about Taoist practice. So there's everywhere from devotional practice to meditational practice. So the main, there's a special aspect of Taoist meditation. It's called Xingming Shuangxiu. So Xing is a spiritual nature. Ming is a physical vitality. So the physical vitality is the life force, what keeps the body healthy, what keeps the physical body alive. The spiritual nature is the spirit, the soul. On another level, it's the mind. So in Buddhist cultivation, the primary focus is cultivation of the mind. So those two words in that aspect are used interchangeably, the spiritual nature and the mind. In Taoist cultivation, there's a lot of emphasis in also cultivating the physical vitality. And so the whole sort of Qigong movement came out of that aspect. And so we talk about Taoist internal alchemy. What's being practiced is merging what's called the three treasures, the spirit, qi, and essence, merging them together. And merging them together can only happen if it has the proper ground. What's the proper ground? The proper ground is stillness. So Zhentu, true earth, is stillness. So there's a saying, 修心不修命，这是修心第一病. So cultivating the mind, cultivating the spiritual nature without cultivating the vitality, this is an illness of cultivation. So the other side of that is 修命不修心，又是修心一个病. So without cultivating the spiritual nature, just cultivating the physical vitality, this is also a problem. Because if you don't have the vitality to be present, it's very difficult to cultivate the mind. But if what you're doing is going off and just paying attention to cultivating the qi, then you're actually missing the ground that gives that its stability, that gives it its safety. So.
Thank you, Harris.
Oh.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.